Welcome. Today we are joined by Mr. A.P. Singh, who is a former civil servant who has spent his entire career thinking about how to improve public services. Today we are talking about a common practice carried out by the police in India, which is the erection of police barricades on major highways and other roads. These are colloquially called nakabandis and they are known by different names in different parts of India. Sir, why do you think that we should question this common practice of erecting roadside police barricades in India?
I think in India, if you just look at it from a citizen's perspective, there are a lot of irksome things happen, and a whole lot of them we just allow them to pass without pausing to think that how this impacts us and the larger ecosystem. And something which is in your face is the nakabandi or the barricading that the police resort to on the face of it very indiscriminately, whether it's in cities or it's on highways. It's the most usual thing to come across a police barricade, and most of the times you know that it's for frivolous or extraneous reasons, quite simply put, rent seeking. Now, this is not a trivial issue because at a philosophical level, it impedes on my fundamental right, which is freedom of movement. And on a more kind of an immediate basis, it impacts my security because unmanned police barricades, any number of cases have been there of people even losing their lives. And at a third level, it's something which causes hardships like avoidable traffic jams, but it's also a part of systematic rent seeking, which every citizen in India undergoes at the hands of many agencies. The police is not the only one, but police is certainly one of them and a prominent one. So I do think that this is an issue which needs resolving because one, nakabandi is a very archaic sort of a policing system. Second, it was kind of designed and sanctioned by the British, who had totally different kind of purposes behind it. And today, in no modern country, I mean, does the police resort to this? Say, for instance, cities. I mean, is it even imaginable that in New York or London, in Hong Kong, that police will erect barricades? So why would they do it in Mumbai and why would they do it in Delhi? Worse still, why would they do it on the highways? And in India, it's also done on the highways. So I think this is it's a small issue with big implications.
Absolutely. So the lost time during a traffic jam that or a traffic bottleneck caused by a barricade is very significant. However, if one were to pose this question to someone who is in the police and authorizes these barricades frequently, they may respond to a claim like this saying, yes, there is inconvenience, yes, there are risks. However, the reason or the motivation they may have today for doing so is the complete lack of discipline on Indian roads. Do you think so my first question is, do you think these problems are related? The problem of the lack of discipline on Indian roads, people driving under influence even though it's just not supposed to happen. And my second question is, are there less intrusive ways of policing this problem while at the same time ensuring that there are no hard blocks on highways or on the streets?
Yeah, I think currently, for one, I mean, most of the times when a cop stops you, let's say on the highways, what they resort to is they start checking documents that, do you have a driving license? Do you have a pollution certificate? And do you have a vehicle registration? Now, it's a very expensive way to stop individual vehicles and check this when all of this can be done online. So that part of it is totally redundant. And the only thing which you can say is drunken driving or driving under the influence of alcohol, But then that's something which has to be done strategically and selectively. And it's not that the police is standing at all nakas with the breath analyzers. So I think that's an exception which should not be used to beat the argument which is on the face of it the rule. Because in public policy, if you start making solutions or making policies to attend to exceptions, then you are basically jamming the recipients or the citizens, which is usually the case in India across board. So public policies have to be made to address the rule, and the exception has to be taken care of exceptionally. So yeah, I don't think that this particular utility is being used by the police most of 80% of the times with purpose. And I think when it is, I think it should be like no barricading should be allowed to take place on the road without authority, or say something equivalent of a warrant, and which should be displayed there that this barricade is being set up under the authority or directions given, let's say, by the district superintendent of police, wide order number so and so. And other than that, the ordinary policeman or the thana officials should be disempowered from setting up barricades at will.
Absolutely, understood. That makes sense. So then my final couple of questions to you would be on, so you mentioned, London and New York, and in the United States, there is a constitutional right, or rather a constitutional duty that the police have, that they can conduct a traffic stop only when they have a probable cause or a reasonable cause that the person in the vehicle may be, say, carrying contraband or maybe fleeing from a crime or some other reasonable cause. So there is that check which is there in these countries, which is it is formally there in India, but then the question is as to how it practically plays out. So how do you think bringing a formal check, like, or enforcing a formal check on the police who are conducting these stops, how do you think that should play out? How do you think that should be enforced against the police? And number two, the next thing that I thought of when you said that one gets fined for some transgression at such a traffic stop, they are often, I mean, even the police will say, "Aap chahe to aap court mein lad lo." And that brought me to the very next point of a traffic court or the judicial system in India, the smaller, the courts that deal with traffic offences more generally in India. Process changes in these courts would be very beneficial to get or to help a citizen challenge some kind of a challan or some kind of a transgression that they may have been fined for at such a nakabandi. So yeah, two questions. One is how would a constitutional protection play out in the Indian context? And secondly, which is really related, to help enforce this kind of a protection, what would need to change in the traffic courts of India?
So I'll take up the first question. And I mean, if you do a intelligent reading of the Indian Constitution, all those protections are available to the Indian citizen as they are to the American one.
Yes.
So it's just a question of invoking them,
Yes,
and then implementing them, and the political executive is in the best position
yes,
to take a decision without getting cowed down by all kinds of security bogies that the police may advance in favor of barricading. I mean, because it doesn't happen in most of the civilized world, so too much of an argument out here is not required.
yes,
And they put the police to notice similarly that you have to have a specific and a tangible reason and a proper authority to be able to put up a barricade. So I think it's not a very difficult thing to implement, but it has huge gains, which we will come down to separately. The second question I prefer not to answer because it trivializes the discussion that we are having, because this is not about traffic fines and things like that. Because this argument out, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that it's about liberty, it's about freedom of movement, it's about basic security. It's so to that extent, it's also about freedom of life and property, and it's also about a problem that kind of plagues our country, but we are not willing to take on, which is open rampant corruption, and which I think can only be taken on piece by piece. And here is an important piece where the most visible form of corruption, right on the open road, can be attended to by actually just a two-line order, which prohibits the police from putting barricades on for frivolous or no reasons at all.
So, just to go back to the point on courts. The reason I mentioned courts is because I think it would change the incentives of the police, and here's how. So, when, let's say, if I am stopped at a nakabandi, I have three options. Realistically speaking, in India, one is there is the corruption option of offering a bribe, which is wrong. It is illegal. The second is to some people. I mean, there is a common trope in India that you say, "Janta hai main kaun," who are trying to invoke some kind of authority. The third option, which is not at all used by India because of the reputation, or rather because of the public perception of courts, is to say, "Aap chalan, you create the receipt. I will fight this legally." And once the police realize that a lot of their traffic challans are being contested in courts, that may act as a pressure. So
I mean, that option is already there. Just as there is an option that if you pay, online, then the perverse incentive really goes.
Right.
But to some extent, you see, that's, and if the paying traffic channels would become as digital as using UPI for shopping and everything else, I think the police will itself stop putting the barricades, because I mean, I understand that they're often given targets, and for that they are good if you want to pay a challan on record, but that's not the reason why they set up the barricades. You see, what's important to keep in mind is that it's, besides the liberty and movement and safety, this will have huge spin-offs. For instance, currently, say moving goods by road, say from Chennai to Delhi, the GST has, for instance, smoothened the passage, but the police menace still remains. The number of places which, say, in a 2,000 kilometer journey, the movement is stopped or delayed or slowed because of barricades, has huge economic implications. So, if we are talking of ease of business, well, this is, I think, the most in your face action to be taken to smoothen it. It will expedite movement, it will reduce harassment. And the same thing goes for ease of living, because this is a menace for citizens, where the police even lays traps. If you go from, say, Delhi to Chandigarh, or from Delhi to Rajasthan, the limit on the highway is 80 kilometers. But what will happen is that there will be a small culvert or a bridge just before that. It will be put 40 kilometers, which you are not even likely to see. And the moment you cross it, in the middle of nowhere, you will find that there's a policeman there who will slow you down and say that you were driving at 70 kilometers, and you say 80 is the limit. They'll say, no, there was a board before out here which said 40. And the entire movement, if you diligently follow that, then the expressway is nullified, because every 10 kilometers the speed starts varying.
Absolutely.
So I think this is something, an obvious problem with a simple solution, and that's the reason why I chose to speak.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful idea. Hope that this gains traction soon. Thank you.
Thank you.